Hey guys, it's Davin here at Brew. Now, one of the questions we're regularly asked is what's the difference, or what sort of sugar should I be using when making my brews? So come on in, James. I've got a couple of different sugars here. Let's start with the bag of sugar that you can get from your supermarket. Okay, this is Silver Spoon, made over in Norfolk, mainly made from sugar beets. And it's made up of a couple of different types of sugars mainly. You find fructose and glucose. And basically, those two sugars combined give you a sweetness. But yeast also love this. Now, for yeast to be able to eat the Silver Spoon sugar, the granulated supermarket sugars, they need to first of all break down the sugar into its different sugar types, and then they can start munching on them and turning the sugars to alcohol and carbon dioxide. However, brewing sugar in front of us here, this one's slightly different. This one's made of dextrose. And dextrose, the yeast don't have to break down at all. They can get straight in there, they can get straight munching on it. So usually they get to work a lot faster. The big difference between brewing sugar and normal supermarket sugar is that brewing sugar doesn't really add any sweetness to your finished product. Whereas you could put a couple of teaspoons of supermarket sugar into your coffee and it becomes really sweet. You add 3 or 4 tablespoons of brewing sugar into your cup of coffee and you can still only just about taste it, but it will give it a real thick viscosity. So that's the two main differences. If you're using brewing something like a country wine, then you want it possibly to end up quite nice and sweet, so you might want to use some supermarket sugar. Whereas if you're brewing up a wine kit, say a Sauvignon Blanc or something like that, if you use supermarket sugar, you're going to get a really sweet finish to the wine. However, if you want a more accurate finish to the wine, as in a sort of wine that you'd be able to buy off the shelf of that variety, in a kit form, go for the brewing and winemaking sugar. It makes a big difference. Okay, so we've got a few others here. Let's come to lactose. So lactose is a lovely sugar. Now this is made from milk, hence why it's called milk sugar. And this, if you ever see something like a milk stout or a milkshake IPA in the craft beer realm that's coming around now, this is what is used to sweeten it. So lactose adds a real creaminess to it, to the finished beer or product, and it will also add a sweetness. Now the yeast cannot eat this sugar, so it's called a non-fermentable sugar, so it will keep that sweetness right to the end. When you add this to any beer, it will actually clump up, so what you tend to do is you tend to put this into water first of all, bring it to the boil, and then add that water solution to your beer. So what else have we got? We've got these lovely things here called spray malts. So spray malts are made by, I forgot this one, I'll bring this one back in. Spray malts are made by taking your grains, your barley, mashing them for an hour at about 65 degrees Celsius. Once you've then got your sweet liquid, your sweet wort, you then sparge it, rinse all the grains, so you're left with this lovely sweet sugary wort. Now normally then you would add your hops to that and you would boil it away and then you'd cool it down and you'd add your yeast and turn it into beer. But we've taken a few steps out here. So what they've done is they've mashed their grains, they've got it lovely and sweet, they've sparged it so to get out any remaining sugars from the grains, and then what they've done is they've basically sprayed it into a vacuum. And what this does with a very fine spray, it instantly boils off the water and it turns to a lovely fine powder. This is absolutely gorgeous. And we've got a few different varieties. We've got a light spray malt, we've got a medium spray malt and a dark spray malt. So these guys will turn it into different sorts of beers, I suppose, if you really want to say. Like a light spray malt will be good for a really good pale ale or a lager. A medium spray malt would be great for an amber ale, and a dark spray malt really good for stouts and porters. So you can add those to a beer kit, and they will add extra body, flavour, depth, head retention, and a few other things as well. These are a direct replacement for sugar. So if your beer kit says you need 1 kilogram of sugar, if you want to add 1 kilogram of spray malt instead, that will, as I say, give you all that extra lovely body and flavour. So beer enhancer, this one here, this is a mixture of 50% light spray malt and 50% brewing sugar. So you've kind of got the best of both worlds. You've got the yeast that are going to eat all the brewing sugar, and then they're going to eat all the spray malt sugars as well. But it's going to give you this lovely extra depth that you wouldn't just get from the brewing sugar itself. So lastly, we've got the tins. So some of you are quite likely to see in these tins, this is liquid malt extract. So where this is powdered malt extract, this is the liquid form. So what they've done with this, again, they've taken their grains, their barley, they've mashed it to about 65 degrees for an hour. They've then rinsed the grains to get any remaining sugars out, and then they've put it under a vacuum and added some heat to it as well, and evaporated the water away. This means that you end up with a real thick treacle-like syrup in here. So if I was to open the top up, pour it out, it will take absolutely ages to pour it out. If I was to take, this comes in various different guises as well. So this comes in light, medium, or light amber, and dark as well. If I was to take light spray malt, and I was to leave that open to the air, the moisture in the air would start working on this, and this would turn this back to liquid malt extract. So, a few different types of sugars for you. Just to recap, we've got supermarket sugar, great for anything at all, but remember it will add a sweetness to your finished product. So if you're making a beer kit with it and you use supermarket sugar, it will make your final beer sweet, and it will also make, if you're making a wine kit, it will make your final wine sweet. If you prefer a drier wine or a beer that's more closely related to what you would find in the pub, go for brewing sugar. It will give you a good result. If you want a really nice beer that's going to be very similar to what you're going to get in a pub and you're just brewing up a beer kit, use the beer enhancer, which is the mixture of light spray malt and brewing sugar. If you really, really want to get that extra depth of flavour, go with your spray malts or your liquid malt extracts, and it's a direct replacement. So 1 kilogram of sugar in your recipe, you can directly relate to 1 kilogram of your spray malt. And then, as I said, if you really want to zhuzh your stouts up or your IPAs up, you can also add some lactose, aka milk sugar, and that will not ferment. It won't add any more ABV to it. It'll add a lovely creamy mouthfeel, and it will also add a slight sweetness to it as well. So, hopefully, that gives you a little bit more in-depth information as to which sugar to use.